Hey everybody, this is Peter with Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today I'm coming to you with a look at Cyberpunk RED, the role-playing game by R. Talsorian Games. Now, if you see the name Cyberpunk and you're thinking, I think I recognize that name from somewhere, well, it could be because this game's been around since 1984, and this is just its latest iteration, as well as at the end of 2020, they released a video game based off of this game, its setting, and all of that. So maybe you've played the video game, maybe you've played one of the earlier editions of the role-playing game. Either way, we're going to take a look at this book. We're going to open it up. We're going to see what's inside, a little bit about how the game is played, the setting of the game, to try to figure out if this is a game maybe that I would be interested in playing, or maybe that you would be interested in playing as well. We're not going to do a huge deep dive into how all of the rules work, but we're going to take a look at the rule book itself, again, just to kind of get a feel for the game to see if it's something that we might want to play. So hopefully you find this video useful, and we're going to go ahead and take the book down to the table, open it up, and see what's inside. All right, everybody. So here we are down to the table with the core rulebook for Cyberpunk RED, the role-playing game of the dark future by R. Talsorian Games. I'm going to go ahead and flip it over and read to you from the back of the book. It says, welcome to the time of the Red Chumba. The mega corporations spent decades wrecking everything, and in the aftermath of their last war, everyone has to fend for themselves. But that's just fine. You can handle it. After all, in a world of vicious booster gangs, rampaging cyborgs, corporate assassins, and nihilistic doomsday cults, there's only one rule. Always take it to the edge. Take the big risk, get the big rewards, be the action, start the rebellion, light the fire. Never drive slow when you can blaze a trail. You've hooked your Militech pistol to the interface in your brain, upgraded your cybernetic fist with carbo glass blades, and installed cyber eyes that can pierce through the red haze like morning fog. There's a world full of opportunities out there, just waiting for the right edge runner, and maybe that's you. Cyberpunk RED is the latest edition of the classic tabletop role-playing game of the dark future and encompasses everything you need to explore the post-war world of the time of the Red, including a dense deep dive into the history and geography of Night City and the greater cyberpunk world, and plenty of the lore about the time of the Red. 10 unique roles for you to play: the charismatic rocker boys, lethal solos, quick hacking net runners, inventive techs, life-saving and taking med techs, hard-hitting medias, duty-bound lawmen, scheming execs, clever fixers, and range-riding nomads. A huge collection of useful tools, powerful weapons, protective armor, and gleaming cyberware to help you rule the street. 3 scream sheet adventures to show you what cyberpunk is all about. Pre-generated opponents perfect for populating the combat zones and corporate compounds, plus encounters that use them to bring the city to life. Again, R. Talsorian Games is bringing it to you in this massive 456-page core rule book. But without further ado, let's go ahead and crack this book open and see what's inside. All right, so opening it up, we get a nice piece of art here. Inside the book, a little layout of a futuristic sci-fi cyberpunk world. Again, this is, to me, this kind of gives you the futuristic feel of maybe like a Fifth Element or a Blade Runner, which again, I think is the kind of the idea of this setting. Cyberpunk is not something that I am super familiar with as a genre. So, but nice piece of cover art nonetheless, or, you know, in-space art. And then we get to see the image from the cover of the book again. And we get our introduction to the cast and the crew who helped to bring this game to life, and our table of contents. The book is broken up into about 18 different sections. And section 1 here, entitled Never Fade Away, 2013, 32 years ago, is a few pages, about 12 pages worth of fiction, of narrative fiction, trying to get you into the setting of the game itself. And so if you're going to be running this game for your friends, or maybe you're just trying to get them to understand kind of what the game is going to be about, this might be some useful fiction for you to read or have them to read as well. And there's going to be 2 more sections in the book that are just like this, where it's just some fiction to help sell the setting of the game and get your players and yourself excited about playing in this world. It's something that I don't see a lot of other games doing. 12 pages is quite a lot of pages of fiction to put out there for everyone. But again, if you're just wanting to get into the setting that is Cyberpunk or Cyberpunk Red here, maybe this is exactly what you need to get yourself excited for the game. So this is section 1, Never Fade Away. And again, just 12 pages full of fiction to get you into the game. Next, we have section 2, and that is View from the Edge. And its intro to Cyberpunk takes a few pages to set up the world of Cyberpunk and its current state of affairs. You're going to flip through that. Each paragraph summarizes the situation for you, but there's also a page number listed off under each one of these so that you can jump ahead into the book for even more in-depth information about the world and this portion of the lore or the way the game is played. In summary, over the years, people have lived up to and surpassed the imaginations of the sci-fi writers of the past. Humanity created amazing technology and then hardwired themselves into it. Then there was a big economic collapse, and eventually corporations grew so big that they might as well have been governments in and of themselves. Then 2 of those huge companies decided to go to war, and eventually a nuke was set off in Night City, the key location of the game. Now, everyone lives in this post-war society where it is everyone for themselves, and even the net has its own way of fighting back. Section 2 also continues with a quick explanation of what a tabletop role-playing game is and how it works, and it finishes with this very good dictionary to help you brush up on your cyberpunk street slang. And one of my favorites is this one right over here, and that is meat space. I kind of wanted to start using that word regularly, a term commonly used by netrunners to refer to the physical world. So where we live today is the meat space. I just think that's kind of a fun word. The next few sections dive into character creation, and this is a really big part of the book itself. Section 3, called Soul and the New Machine, Who Will You Be, tells us that it's always personal. This game is about survival in a harsh world, and the player characters are the heroes of a bad situation, working to make it better whenever they can. They need to find their cause and go to the wall with it. So there are 3 rules to live by in this game. There is style over substance, attitude is everything, and live on the edge. And then, of course, 4th rule at the bottom, break the rules. Of course, this is Cyberpunk, and it's about taking it to the edge. So don't forget, after you know the rules, break the rules. The section then continues with an overview of the different roles you have to choose from for your character. If you've played other games, some games would call these classes or archetypes. This game, specifically Cyberpunk Red, calls them roles. And so the different roles that you have are rocker boys. They are the rock and roll rebels who use performance art and rhetoric to fight authority. There are the solos, assassins, bodyguards, killers, and soldiers for hire in a lawless new world. The netrunners, cybernetic master hackers of the post-net world and brain-burning secret stealers. There are the techs, renegade mechanics and super tech inventors, the people who make the dark future run. There are med techs, unsanctioned street doctors and cyberware medics patching up meat and metal alike. The medias, reporters, media stars, and social influencers risking it all for the truth or glory. We have the execs, corporate power brokers, and business raiders fighting to restore the rule of the megacorps. Lawmen, maximum law enforcers in patrolling the mean streets and barbarian warrior highways beyond. Fixers, the deal makers, organizers, and information brokers in the post-war midnight markets of the street. And nomads, transport experts, ultimate road warriors, pirates, and smugglers who keep the world connected. So each rule is given its own full page description with some great art to get your creative juices flowing. So we've got the rocker boy, we've got the solo, we've got the net runner all geared up in their net running gear. We've got the tech, the med tech, a media, an exec. Again, the execs in this probably going to be bad, but maybe you're an exec who either wants to see the mega corporations come back, or maybe you were part of the failure of the mega corps and the war. Who knows? Lawman, the fixer, and the nomad. And then section 3 finishes by explaining that there are 3 different methods for character creation, and each following a flowchart that spans the next few sections of the rulebook. For a quick character template, you can use the street rat method. Then there is the edge runners for those who want a bit more involvement in the character making process. And then there is complete packages if you want to get down and dirty into the nitty gritty of making a character in this system. Section 4 is entitled Tales from the Street, Running the Life Path. And Running the Life Path is basically 25 pages of rollable charts where you can create your character's backstory. Whether you roll on the chart or choose your favorite option, you will be deciding on your character's cultural origins, personality, clothing style and hair options, affectations like tattoos, fingernail implants, etc., motivations and relationships, valued persons and items. You're going to look into family background as well, your childhood environment, past family crisis, friends, enemies, and possibly how you want to get revenge against those enemies, past tragic love affairs, and life goals. There were 14 different things there that you're going to be going through as you start running the life path for your character. Then, if that's not enough, again, this game goes really hard in getting your character's backstory together so that you can really flesh out this character. It's probably one of the more in-depth core rulebook character creation methods I've ever witnessed reading through role-playing games. So again, you can choose from the 3 different methods that we spoke about in section 3. Maybe you're doing the street rat and you're just going to do it right out the gate, easy peasy, just follow the template. Or maybe you're going to go the complete package as well, and roll on all of these charts or choose from all of these charts. But that's not the whole thing, because depending then on which role you have decided to play, the life path continues with your own page. There's a page here for the rocker boy, a page for the solo, and these are specific things that you're going to be doing through the life path method for your role, where other people will be using the other pages. So we got Netrunner there, the tech, couple pages, the med tech, a couple pages, a page for media and a page for the exec, another page for the exec and a page for the lawman, a couple pages for the fixer, and a couple pages for the nomad. So depending on what role you play, doesn't matter which role you play, you're going to do the first bit of that as you go through the life path. But then at the very end of the life path, you're going to go ahead and do your specific roles portion of the life path as well. And so by the end of section 4, your character should really be coming into focus for you in this book. And then we're going to jump to section 5. Section 5, fitted for the future, the parts of a character. This introduces the character's stats for Cyberpunk RED, and there are 10 stats broken down into 4 groups. The 4 groups that we have in this game are mental, combat, fortune, and physical. Under the mental grouping, we have intelligence, willpower, cool, and empathy. Under combat, we have technique and reflexes. Under fortune, there is luck. And under physical, we have body, dexterity, and movement. And depending on which character creation method you are using determines how you will figure out your character's stats. For the Street Rats roll, you're going to roll on a D10 on the charts, and the number you roll is going to determine which row of stats you're going to be using. So when you go the Street Rat method, you're going to take a look at the chart, you're going to roll a D10, and that number along here determines if you roll a 6, then you're just going to be taking this whole row worth of stats. You're not choosing from the different stats. You're just rolling once and then writing down the stats that are along that row. If you're doing the Edge Runner, then you're actually going to be rolling for each stat. So you'll go to Intelligence and you'll roll a D10, and that will determine which one of these intelligences you get. And then you're going to go to Reflexes, roll a D10, and that will determine which of the reflexes you get, and so forth. So again, Street Rat, you're going to roll once. And when you roll once, it's just going to give you a straight go across for the stat block. If you're doing the Edge Runner, then you're going to roll for each one of the stats individually. And then if you decide that you're going to be going actually with the complete packages, you're going to use a point system to buy your stats. So it's going to take a lot longer. There's more flexibility there as you're trying to build your character. But it is going to take a lot more work. I think probably I would lean towards the Edge Runners version of this myself. But again, if you're wanting that quick character, you go the Street Rat method. If you're going to take a little bit longer, the Edge Runner. And if you're going to take a long time and really get into it, the complete packages, where again, you're doing a point buy system. Now, there are also 2 derived stats that everyone will then have to calculate after they've gotten their other stats collected. And that is, the first one is hits. Those are the points are determined by multiplying your body and your will stats. So hit points, you're going to multiply your body and your will. And again, they give you this nice chart here at the bottom of page 79 to help you figure that out. So that way you don't have to actually do the multiplication yourself. If you don't want to, you can just go here, say, okay, here's my body score, here's my will score. And that means this, these are my hit points at the start of the game. So they got that nice chart there for you. The second is your humanity. This is another derived stat that you can't get until you've gotten your other stats as well. And so humanity is how well you interact with the world and the people in it. And it is going to be 10 times your empathy score. So whatever your empathy score is, again, they give you a nice little chart here on page 80. Whatever your empathy score is, then you're going to look at that, and that's going to show you times 10 is what your humanity score is. And again, this is how well you're interacting with the world and people around you. So after your stats are determined, this section covers the massive list of skills that are available in the game and how you determine your character's level of capability in each skill. Now, again, there are slightly different methods depending on which character creation template you are following. Each skill is associated with one of the core stats of the game, and eventually that will also come into play when trying to perform those skills in the game. So depending on whichever method you're utilizing for creating your character, you'll figure out how you're getting your skills determined for the game. Finally, you're going to spend the rest of this section determining what type of weapons, armor, or outfit your character will be wearing at the start of the game, because again, you're getting fitted for the future. And there's quite a few pages on all of the weapons and all of the gear that are available to you at the beginning of the game or throughout the game. And again, this is going to be for gear, for weapons, for armor, for clothing. There's just quite a few pages here getting you ready and fitted for the future. Now we're into section 6, and section 6 is putting the cyber into the punk, and it introduces us to the 8 types of cyberware that are in the game. So again, if you're really into this cyberpunk thing, the idea here is that we are into a post-war future after the world has just been inundated with all of these wonderful gadgets that you can use to replace your body parts or upgrade your body parts. You're going to plug directly into them. They plug into your brain. Maybe you're getting special eyewear to help you see in the dark. Who knows? Tons of stuff in here. But there are 8 different types of cyberware that this game talks about. And we're going to really quickly talk about those 8 things. You have fashion wear, which could just be things like Kim's skin, or a light tattoo, or a skin watch. All right, there's also the neural wear. There's cyber optics, cyber audio. Maybe you're going to have like micro video, for your cyberware. Maybe you're going to have bug detectors for your cyber audio built into your body. We've got internal cyberware, we've got external cyberware, we've got cyber limbs, all sorts of really crazy things. And then we wrap it off with Borgware. So again, those 8 different types of cyberware that you can get into. And again, there's lists for each one: are fashion wear, neural wear, cyber optics, cyber audio, internal body cyberware, external body cyberware, cyber limbs, and Borgware. This section is actually just an abbreviated look at the cyberware available in the game. The full rules for this section actually start on page 358. With each cyberware upgrade, there's also a humanity stat loss, which will then which can affect your empathy stat. And we know that your empathy stat also affects how you interact with the world as well. So as with everything else, the method of acquiring stuff depends on your character creation method. And now we're to section 7. Section 7 is the second of the 3 just like fiction sections, where they're going to be telling you a little bit about the world, getting you plugged in and excited about the world itself. The Fall of the Towers 2023 took place 22 years ago, before this game, is supposedly taking place. So you're going to want to read through these pages here for some more fiction, getting you and your players excited about the game. That's a much shorter section of fiction, which is about 3 pages there. Now that your character has been created, Section 8, Getting It Done, covers the basics of resolution, and it's where we start to get into the actual playing of the game. Each character's turn is going to consist of 1 move and 1 action. To resolve a skill check, you will add your skill and its associated stat together, and then you're going to roll a d10. So d10s and d6s are the dice in this game. D10s as you're making your skill checks, d6s as you're possibly causing damage. So again, to resolve a skill check, you will add your skill and its associated stat together, and then you're going to roll a d10. Now, if you are fighting the GM, if you're fighting, the GM will do the same for the NPCs, and the ties will always go to the defender. So if you're having combat, then you're going to be choosing your action. You're going to roll your skill and your stat that are associated with that action, and then roll that d10, add all that together. And then the GM will do the same thing for the NPC. If it's a tie, the tie goes to the defender. If you're trying to perform a task, then the GM will use a chart that's on page 129 here to help determine the difficulty value of the action you're trying to do. The value, according to this chart, can go anywhere from a 9 all the way up to 29. And you must hit or exceed the difficulty value to successfully perform the action. And again, that's going to be utilizing your stat, and it's going to be utilizing the skill, and then it's going to be adding a D10 roll to those 2 things to see if you can hit that difficulty value. Now, pages 130 through page 142 give a much more detailed definition of each skill in the game. So as you're getting ready to play the game, this is going to be a section that you're really going to want to take a close look at, getting a better understanding of each of the skills and what they do in the game. And there again are quite a few pages of them as we go from page 130 to 142. And then starting on page 142, you can read about the different role abilities, because again, there are the skills that each person has available to them, but each role is very specific and different from one another. And so they give you here, again, like I said, on page 142, the different role abilities depending on which role you have decided you want to play as. This is another 23 pages as you flip through it for each one of the roles and other things for getting things done in the game. And that's going to take us all the way here to section 9 of the book. And that is Friday Night Fight, Fast, Violent, Cyberpunk RED. So now's the time to talk about combat. And we talked a little bit about it a second ago, but everyone rolls for initiative at the beginning of combat. And the way that you do that is everyone is going to roll a d10 and add their reflex stat. Again, everyone is going to get one move action and one action during combat when it's their turn. Actions can include making an attack, equipping or dropping a shield, grabbing an opponent, or object they are holding, running, reloading, etc. Some actions will point you to other parts of the book to explain further what those actions can do. For example, you can use the net actions. And if you're using net actions, they refer you to page 197 so that you can find out more about what it is exactly that looks like. Those are going to be really huge for the net runners of the game. So if you are going to choose to play a net runner, then you're really going to want to brush up on what net actions are and how they work. It's almost a whole another game in and of itself in Cyberpunk RED. This section definitely gets very rules heavy, as with each action there is usually a difficulty value to be determined or competing roles between the player character and the GM. Also, depending on your hit points, you will possibly have a wound state that will adjust your ability to perform actions, which I actually think is pretty interesting. You could be lightly wounded, you could be seriously wounded, you might even be mortally wounded. If you are mortally wounded, you could also end up being dead. So you might also be hit with a critical injury to the body or the head, and each of which has its own chart. On page 187, we have critical injuries to the body, and then we also have one here on 188 for critical injuries to the head. There are also rules for vehicle combat, starting here on page 189. And last but not least, there's even a page about how reputation in the game, page 193, can affect how NPCs react to you as a player, possibly helping you to avoid conflict or possibly causing you to even incite conflict, depending on the reputation of your character. And so that's, again, a real quick overview of fighting and combat in this game. There's a lot going on as you take a look at the different possibilities here for your characters. And then again, if you are a net runner, you have a whole nother section to figure out and read up on as you get ready for net running in the game as well. And that is going to lead us then to section 10, which is a 23-page deep dive into net running. So that's what we were just talking about, net running, hacking in the time of the RED. So again, 23 pages is a lot. We're not going to go through all 23 pages here, but if you're somebody who is going to play a net runner, this is a big section for you to tackle. The net got wrecked during the war, and accessing the net still has great potential, but it also has the possibility of terrible consequences. There are deadly AI in the net, and they will try to destroy an unwary netrunner. If you decide to play the netrunner, you, again, absolutely need to read this section to get a handle on what you can do and how and when taking net actions are possible and what they look like. We're going to take a look in a later video at a separate deck of cards that they actually put out from R. Talsorian Games, specifically helping GMs and net runners visualize a little bit better this portion of the game. And having looked through those, I think they're a pretty necessary component of the game. At least it would be for me if I was running the game or if I was playing a net runner in the game. So that's section 10. Again, a 23-page manual for just the net runners and the GMs of the game. Section 11 is called Trauma Team, and it covers how you and your friends can try to heal up after a big fight and how to make death saves if you are mortally wounded in combat. Then there is also, I'm going to go ahead and jump forward here. There is sections 12, 13, and 14. 12, 13, and 14 are 80 pages of what is commonly referred to in tabletop role-playing games as a lore dump. If you are just really needing to know about the world and get into the setting of the world, then you might want to read these pages. If you're running the game, if you're going to be the GM, you definitely need to get into these sections, read them, get to know the world, because section 12 is Welcome to the Dark Future. And that is giving you just an overview of everything that has happened over the years leading up to where the game is at this time. It covers the war. It's got, it shows here the Sea War, the Land War, the Orbital War. And it tells you about the end of governments, the end of the net, and then where things are, like I said, at the beginning of this game. But it doesn't stop there. It then dives into section 13, which is called The Time of the Red, and that's the aftermath of the Fourth Corporate War. And so this is against Cyberpunk RED, and Cyberpunk RED is taking place kind of towards the end or just the aftermath of even the time of the Red. And so this is just a section, again, chronological, some of the things that have taken place or happened throughout the world leading up to what happened with the corporations and the fallouts of the corporations in this game. And it's a lot. It is a lot of stuff here. If you're the GM, you have a lot of reading to do. If you're the players, maybe you have a lot of reading that you want to do, and you can dive into the lore of the world. But it doesn't end there, because then we have a huge section here as well on Welcome to Night City, a city of dreams. And this is more than likely where your game is going to be set if you're playing Cyberpunk RED, because Night City is kind of like the big city on the western coast of the US. And you're going to want to read through this to get an understanding of the world, how it works in this city. And again, just loads and loads and loads of information about Night City itself. So if you like lore dumps, or if you just love reading and you're going to play this game and you want to just know as much as you can about the world ahead of time, sections 12, 13, and 14 are going to be for you. Like I said, 80 pages right there, all about the world. Now we get to section 15, and section 15 is everyday life in the time of the Red. Everyday life is a great section for players to better understand the day-to-day life of the characters. So everything before this was like the history leading up to where the game is taking place. And now this is going to give you a better understanding of how day-to-day life happens in the world as it is today. It touches on how people stay out of trouble, or how they keep in touch, how they get around the world and what they wear. Gets into how to have fun and a whole lot more. So there's a lot to get into as you read through everyday life. I would probably recommend anybody playing the game to definitely read section 15, everyday life. The previous sections, like I said, it's a lot, and I don't think I would ask all my players to read through sections 12, 13, and 14, but section 15 is probably short enough and important enough that I think it would be a good use of the player's time to read that, just to, again, try to understand what it is the normal everyday person is going to be doing in Cyberpunk Red in this world. Section 16 is called the New Street Economy, and it's all about the night markets where your characters may try and find more wares. There are lists of weapons with detailed descriptions. There's lists of armor and gear, lists of fashion, drugs, and cyberware. And if you're looking to shop for the latest gadgets and fashions, then this is the section you need to be reading up on and talking to your game master about, so you know what's available to you, how do you find it, how much does it cost, and how will it affect your player character throughout the game. And again, as you can see, this is not just some short list of items. This is a very deep, dense section just on purchasing items in the world of Cyberpunk Red. Section 17 is running Cyberpunk. So how do I run this game anyway? That is right. We are 387 pages into this book, and we are now to the section on running Cyberpunk. Everything before is prologue, everybody. Running Cyberpunk, so how do I run this game anyway, is 50 pages of ideas on how to run Cyberpunk. We're not going to dive into this, just like we haven't, dove into everything else real deep. But we have 50 pages of ideas on how to run Cyberpunk. There is loads of great information in here, but everybody, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody because this is specifically for the GM who's going to be running the game. You're going to need to dive into running Cyberpunk. They've got a lot of great ideas in here, ways to set up some scenarios for your players. But again, not wanting to give any spoilers here. So we're going to quickly flip past this section so I can get to the last couple spots here for you. Here we go. So section 18. We're down here towards the end of the game, and the book finishes out here with a final bit of fiction again, helping to set the tone of the game. It's called Black Dog 2045 present day. So the game is taking place in 2045. If I remember correctly, the video game, I think, is Cyberpunk 2077. So this is prior to the events that are happening in the video game. But again, this section is just going to be a few pages of fiction like we had twice earlier in the book, helping you to get yourself and your players who are going to read it into the lore and the setting of the game. And then here in the back, we have a couple charts, and then we have our index. And that, everybody, is the core rulebook for Cyberpunk Red. It is a massive endeavor to be looking through this full book. Thank you for flipping through the pages with me. Again, 456 pages, probably one of the largest, densest core rule books I have ever personally gone through. And hopefully you can tell from this if you might enjoy Cyberpunk Red by R. Talsorian Games. But now that we've finished our flip through, let's go ahead and come back from the table, and I'll give you my final thoughts. All right, everybody. Well, now that we're done with our look through the book, let me go ahead and give you my final thoughts on Cyberpunk Red, the role-playing game. I think this book has a ton of love put into it. It is a big book, chock full of lore and history, and a really cool game to play. I don't know that this is a game that I particularly am going to be wanting to game master. Sci-fi, futuristic, dark punk, cyberpunk stuff, that's not really who I am, and it's not something that thoroughly interests me and engages me. And as the book does say multiple times, you're going to want to dive into the lore of this setting to really sell the setting to your players. And I just don't know that that is going to be a setting that I can do that for. But I cannot wait, hopefully, to find a friend who would love to run this game for me, because I would love to play in it. I think it's a really cool game system from what I can tell from the book. I like the idea of the life paths as you're creating your character. I think that looks really interesting. So there's a lot about the game that I am excited about. I'm just personally not super excited to run the game myself. So hopefully I can find somebody who wants to dive into this book and run it for me. Until then, I'll just have to keep waiting, but I'm going to be looking around. I know at least one friend who really enjoys Cyberpunk, and I think I could talk him into running a game for me and some of my friends. So maybe this is the game for you. Maybe everything you saw in here was like, yes, that's me 100%. Well, if that's the case, head on over to R. Talsorian Games' website, or head down to your local game store, pick up a copy, or see if they can order one in for you. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope, again, that this video helped you decide whether or not this is a game for you to play or not, because that's the goal of this video. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like, subscribe to the channel so that you can check out all the other content that we're putting out at Tabletop Gaming Guild. You can head over to our website, tabletopgamingguild.com, and you can listen to our podcast there if you would like as well. And thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. Until we talk again, keep on playing games.